My mother was a transmigrator who taught me that everyone is equal and women can hold up half the sky. She even pushed me to study. But once I actually started debating state policy with the tutor, my royal brothers turned on me. In the dead of winter, they shoved me into a frozen lake. Just as I was about to drown, a light pierced the dark. Wei Lingxiao plunged in, pulled me out, and whispered, "Princess Jingan, don't try to stand. Let me carry you back to your palace." She was the only person in the academy who didn't fear the princes, and the only other female besides Metha newly crowned Marquis of Zheng, Wei Lingxiao. I clung quietly to her shoulder, letting out a soft, trembling sob. But she immediately scolded me. "What is there to cry about, princess? They are just bullies. Remember this grudge and pay them back later. Do not waste your tears on them." I was so startled, I sucked in my tears and held my breath. I didn't even dare to make a sound. The moment we reached my mother's palace, I scrambled out of her arms and threw myself into my mother's lap. I hadn't dared to cry in front of Wei Lingxiao, but once she reported what happened and left, I burst into a loud, hysterical sob. My mother held me like a baby, gently patting my back and sighing. "Unbelievable. What are those little teapot-mouthed boys so triggered about?" I was completely used to my mother's bizarre vocabulary, and I knew she was just cursing my bully brothers. So, I nodded vigorously, parroting her words. "Exactly, they are totally triggered." But then, a quiet doubt crept in. "Do you still dare to go back to school?" my mother asked. I froze, torn inside. I had always loved reading and writing, but the bullying left me terrified. Just as I was wavering, a crisp, clear voice drifted in through the window. "Of course she must go." Wei Lingxiao, looking as flawless as polished jade, stepped inside. Even our grand palace couldn't dim her commanding presence. Kneeling, she made a promise that would bind my entire life. "I will protect Princess Jingan," she said, "and ensure she never suffers another shred of bullying." She looked at me, her eyes shining. I didn't know what she saw in me then, but her gaze gave me immense courage. "So, princess, do you dare to return to the academy tomorrow?" I wiped my eyes, tucked a stray hair behind my ear, and sniffled. "I will go to the north gate to wait for Lord Wei, so we can go study together. Neither wind, rain, nor snow shall stop us." That was the first time she smiled at me. She is only 16 years old, yet she is already a commanding general. During last year's Eastern campaign, she traded her right eye for legendary military glory. From our first day at the academy, I held immense awe for this eye-patched female marquis. But the next day, though I waited in the swirling snow at the north gate, she never came. She had sent a guard to tell me that father issued an urgent decree last night, ordering her to march immediately. It was freezing. I was too afraid to even walk in the dark, yet she was already marching through the night. When the guard asked if I had a message for her, I thought and said, "Neither wind nor snow shall stop my studies. May the marquis protect herself and return safely. Tell her I will wait for her return so we can study together." My headmaid, Jingan, teased me, saying other princesses fawned over noble sons while I was clinging to a female general. "She is different, Jingan," I insisted. "She is nothing like those spoiled heirs who treat women as mere ornaments. She respects me. In her eyes I am a princess. She can discuss state policy with an equal to my brothers." Jingan sighed with worry, helping me from my carriage toward the academy. She whispered a final warning, "Just swallow your pride, princess. Don't provoke the princes, or you will be the one who suffers." "Yes, it is always the daughter who suffers." I repeated her words, feeling a bitter pang. How utterly ridiculous. Siblings clash, yet despite being father's children, only the daughter pays the price. I was prepared to act submissive and play nice, but the moment I walked in, two of my brothers eagerly escorted me to my seat. I was completely bewildered. My fourth brother, who never could keep a secret, crouched beside me with a fawning smile. "Sister, you are close with Marquise Wei? Why didn't you say so?" Yesterday was just sibling teasing, yet she complained to father it was all just a big misunderstanding. I blinked, a quiet thought blooming in my mind. "So, there is a woman you fear. The five of you plot tirelessly for the throne, yet you still fear the female general who holds the empire's massive military power. Whomever she backs wins the throne." Still, I had to play dumb. "I caught a cold and went straight to bed yesterday, so I had no idea," I lied, secretly sweetening her title. "My lady general only complained to father because she is swift, decisive, and detests injustice. I hope my brothers can overlook her sharp temper." Hearing this, several of my brothers muttered polite excuses. Only the crown prince's face remained dark. He leaned in and whispered coldly, "Marquis Wei truly exacts her revenge immediately. She wouldn't even wait a day." It was only after I returned to my palace and heard the truth from my mother that I understood. For this campaign, Wei Lingxiao had specifically drafted the crown princess' younger brother, a spoiled, fragile playboy. With the battlefield being so treacherous, who knows if hell make it back alive. "Mother, do you think Lord Wei arranged this to avenge me?" I whispered. "You two barely know each other, why would she bother?" Besides, no matter how decorated she is, she wouldn't easily dare to offend the crown prince. I felt a quiet pang of disappointment, but her logic was sound. I could only nod. From the start, our connection had been undefinable and we barely knew each other. Still, I found myself secretly hanging on to every piece of war news. When my brothers discussed the front lines with our tutor, I learned that during the harshest days Wei Lingxiao was marching through the freezing, bitter northern desert. Many soldiers had already frozen to death before the fighting even started. Recalling the icy lake that day, I shivered, unable to stop myself from interjecting. Third brother, who did you say my lady general went to fight? Are the rebels truly a match for her? My second brother chimed in, his voice dripping with ice. I'm afraid neither you nor I can interfere in this. I had no desire to interfere. I was simply worried for her safety. But my third brother scoffed openly. Second brother, you know how these women are. They don't understand war, they don't understand defending the country, they just cry and pray for their loved ones to return so the war ends. So, Jingan, don't worry blindly. A simple rabble of rebels won't trouble Marquis Wei. But we suspect father has deeper motives for sending a legendary general against mere bandits. Stop trying to read his mind, lest you misinterpret his will. I nodded, feigning ignorance and went along with it. But I knew exactly what my brother meant. The north is thousands of miles away. Using Wei Lingxiao against mere bandits is a waste of her genius. She must carry secret orders, hence her sudden midnight departure, unable to even return home for the new year. Realizing she was the only child of her house, I consulted my mother and sent some gifts to comfort her parents. I wanted to visit them in person, but when I petitioned father to let me leave, he refused. He even scolded me, saying my studying was already an exception and I shouldn't be showing my face in public. I returned in despair, sighing to my mother about how my brothers could travel the empire with their mentors at age 9, while I, nearly of marriageable age, remained trapped in these walls. I looked at my mother, who was staring silently into the flickering candlelight. Mother, I whispered, when I marry, will I just be locked in another square courtyard? When do I get to walk freely in the streets? Must I become a decorated general like her just to earn my freedom? My mother was usually so lively and carefree, settling scores immediately. Even father admitted he loved her free spirit most. Yet at this moment, the playful light in her eyes had completely vanished. In her place sat a woman filled with quiet sorrow. By right, a girl shouldn't have to bleed on a battlefield just to walk down a street, she murmured. But in this world, that seems to be the only path. Melancholy weighed heavily on her face as she pulled me into a gentle embrace. Jinger, I wanted you to read so you wouldn't spend your life as a man's plaything. But now that your mind is open, I fear you will only suffer more trying to fight a tide you cannot stop. Resting my head on her shoulder, I stared out at the swirling snow, lost in my own thoughts. Most things in life do not go our way. But even amidst these hardships, I only want to face them with clear eyes and know I tried my best. I felt my mother stiffen beneath me. At least you lived through it with clear eyes, she whispered, gently stroking my hair. Then she murmured softly, I used to think that like some cheap novel, winning a man's heart would let me go home. But since I am still trapped here, that obviously isn't the case. Lost in confusion, I asked my mother what she meant. Shaking her head, she shed tears of joy. My perspective was simply too narrow. Just do what you want, she said. I will pave the way for you. I squeezed her hands. For the first time, I wanted to shield her, to play the trickster myself. Mother, I said, you have already crossed too many lines for me. A saying has been going around lately, and it is right. You have no wish to harm anyone, but in a palace with so many watching eyes, our success is a knife to their hearts. For now, we must remain calm. My mother smiled in approval and poured me some tea. Do you know which of Consort Shi lines I loved most when she returned? My mother loved storytelling, once mentioning a book called Niuhulu, The Legend of Misplaced Affection, a brilliant story. As I grew up, she would recount it while we ate or washed. Seeing me fail to understand, she said calmly, then do not blame me for showing no mercy to our sisterly bond of the past. I smiled, understanding her completely. I had Chiji bring over the imperial calendar, and under the warm palace lantern, I pointed out the autumn harvest date to my mother. Then, do not blame Jingan for disregarding our past sibling ties. My imperial brothers can leave the palace whenever they wish, but I cannot. Unable to speak openly, I used praying at Huguo Temple as an excuse, slipping out under my mother's cover, to do what I wanted. Every month, the temple held charity days. At first, I stayed inside, sharing simple meals with the young monks. Later, claiming the temple courtyard was too crowded, I began giving alms outside the gates. My real goal was to reach the farm ridges. The first time I saw wheat sprouts, I naively plucked one and popped it into my mouth. Auntie Li, a local farmer, burst out laughing, quickly pulling it from my lips. Princess Jingan, she said. This wheat must go through many steps before it becomes food. Eating it raw like this will never taste like what you enjoy in the palace. On the 1st and 15th of each month, I went to pray, And by the year I turned 15, I finally saw with my own eyes how the green wheat turned golden, how the farmers harvested it with sickles, ground it into flour, and turned it into the bread and noodles we eat. Auntie Li, who had grown close to me, had 2 sons who had followed Wei Lingxiao to the battlefield, leaving behind only her sickly youngest child. I could not bear to see her struggle, so I changed into plain clothes whenever I could to help her grind flour. Auntie Li was terrified, fearing I would hurt my noble hands. I helped her up, telling her that those who claim to work for the people's peace live behind high palace walls, dining on luxury, throwing away a wagon of delicacies in a single meal. I felt deeply ashamed. Under the burning sun, my arms turned a deep, sunburnt red. As the old poem goes, farmers toil under the midday sun, their sweat dripping into the dry soil. I murmured the lines to myself. We had memorized these poems by age 5, but only to win praise from our imperial father, competing over who could recite them better. No one ever realized those few simple words represented the lifelong toil of millions of farmers. Suddenly, a wild storm raged outside. Thinking of Auntie Li's exposed wheat stacks, I frowned, changed into plain clothes, and prepared to leave. My worried mother insisted on sending a guard to protect me. His name was Lingyun. Not only did his name sound similar, but his eyes closely resembled Wei Lingxiao's. I forced myself not to think of him, though the letters I sent were filled with my restless thoughts, only troubling my own heart. As Lingyun held the umbrella, I avoided his eyes and told him to watch his step. Once we reach Auntie Li's, look after her young son. In this heavy rain, her roof is bound to leak, and I worry the boy's fever will worsen. But when we arrived, we were still a step too late. Auntie Li had just hitched her donkey to the cart, preparing to take her son to a doctor. The moment she saw me, this usually resilient woman broke down in tears. She fell to her knees before me, her eyes filled with utter despair. I rushed to pull her up. Auntie, you drive the cart, I will hold San Lang. We cannot waste another second. I will show you the way. Let's go. I grabbed the umbrella from Lingyun, leaped onto the cart to shield the boy, and told him, the mountain path is treacherous. Guard our rear. We will wait at the back of Huguo Temple. Go quickly, and clear the way. My mother's attendants were waiting to receive us. The guard protested, Princess, Huguo Temple is a sacred place of prayer. They are just commoners. Insolent. If I ignore the lives of my people today, then my monthly prayers before the Buddha are nothing but empty words and a betrayal of my own conscience. I grabbed Lingyun's wrist as thunder roared. Looking at these guards, who were usually so respectful yet distant, I saw their expressions change. Lingyun, I said, I do not want to let you down. His confusion melted into determination, and he helped push the cart all the way back to Huguo Temple. Thank goodness, we made it in time. As the golden morning light spilled into the temple hall, Auntie Li's young son was saved. Even the old abbot, usually so detached from the world, looked deeply moved. Princess Jingan, saving a life is a deed of supreme mercy and merit. The Buddha will surely protect you. At dawn, I went out to help Auntie Li salvage her ruined haystacks. By the time I returned, I was exhausted. I leaned against Auntie Li's shoulder as she wept with relief. Do not cry, Auntie, I said. I believe in destiny, but I would rather fight for it before accepting my fate, even if the road ahead is long and difficult. That month, with sunburned arms and cheeks, my secret outings were discovered by my father. He ordered me to reflect in isolation, forcing me to copy a thick stack of the commandments for women. As I copied the text, though my mother angrily called it absolute nonsense, my sheltered life in the palace had kept me from truly understanding. But after weathering real storms, I gained a new perspective. My mother, unable to stand watching me struggle, helped me copy while cursing the text. Jingan, do you know the difference between a woman and a dog to the men who wrote these commandments? Whenever my mother spoke so boldly, I was thoroughly shocked. She was incredibly well-read, yet completely addicted to cursing. When I urged her to speak more elegantly, she brushed it off, saying, as a modern college student, my standards are flexible. I adapt. Faced with these manipulative hypocrites and scumbags, swearing is my only option. By now, I was used to it. I just patted her cheek, gesturing for her to lower her voice, and said, I honestly do not know, mother. Pray tell. The difference, she said, is that women understand human speech, but dogs do not. So they only lecture women. This made me recall my mother's past, back when I was too young to fully understand. While other consorts spent their days dressing up to attract my father, she stayed in her chambers, reading, writing, and making incense. She was especially brilliant at math, so much so that even the emperor often sought her advice. Even at the height of her favor, when the empress tried to make trouble, mother willingly drank contraceptive soup, scoffing at the thought of bearing a prince something others would die for. Raising a good daughter can still care for me in my old age, she would say. If a son turns out bad, having him is pointless. This carefree spirit fascinated my father completely, earning her the envy of the entire harem. But mother simply whispered to me, see how funny it is? Men always desire the women who do not love them. The less attention you pay them, the more obsessed they become. Human nature is greedy. What is unobtainable is always deemed best. Raising a single princess, refusing to bear more children or cling to the emperor, naturally disarmed the hostility of others. But she did this not out of fear, but because she feared nothing. She never worried about dying childless without a prince. She always believed that whatever my brothers could do, I could do too. I loved and respected my mother from the bottom of my heart, just as I admired Wei Lingxiao, because they both truly respected, trusted, and believed in me. Seeing her look of utter disgust at our current situation, I traced my fingers over every word of those restrictive commandments. I quietly said to her, since I must have everything my brothers have, then naturally, that includes the throne. I did not need to look at my mother's face to know she had been waiting for those exact words. And that month, besides saving Auntie Li's son, another joyful event filled me with anticipation. An urgent dispatch from the northern border announced Wei Lingxiao's massive victory and his triumphant return to court. Upon inquiring, I learned he had actually crossed the border and seized Shuiuchi city from Shuema. Hearing the news, I was simply relieved he was still alive. On the day he returned to report his duties, I sent word to invite him for a quiet meeting in the inner palace. Amid the season's first snow, I hosted a banquet at Tingyu Pavilion. He arrived in silver armor and a scarlet robe, looking like a rising sun over the desert rivers. Wei Lingxiao marched up the pavilion steps. Having not seen him for nearly a year, he had grown much thinner, though his single eye was as sharp as ever, and he carried a cold aura that kept others at bay. "Long time no see, Princess Jingan," he greeted me, bowing. Looking down at him, I noticed a dark, thumb-thick scar on the back of his neck, disappearing deep into his collar. Her scar pierced my heart like a needle, sending a sharp pang through me. I had so many things to say. I wanted to ask what dangers she faced, if seizing cities was wise, and to share my recent life. I wanted to tell her I learned to harvest wheat and grind flour, and even saved a child. How I drafted a farming decree to help the people, earning imperial praise. I had so much to say. But seeing her wounds, only endless tears flowed. "Lord Wei, I am so useless, always crying like a child in front of you." I covered my face, but the more I tried to look composed, the more flustered I became. The window blew open, letting in the freezing air. Suddenly, a strong embrace silently wrapped around me. She had grown so much. Last year we were eye to eye. Now I only reached her chin. I lowered my hands and looked up. My forehead unexpectedly brushed her warm lips. Thunder seemed to crash around me. I froze in place, my face burning hotter than a wheat field under the midday sun. She laughed softly, leaning down. "Though I was at the border, my heart remained here. Hearing of your achievements this past year brings me joy. You have warmed the hearts of those nearby, and mine, thousands of miles away." She knew. She was actually watching me. This was the first time Wei Lingxiao had ever spoken so gently to me. "I promised to protect you, yet I let you face a year of harsh wind and rain alone. Once you finish crying, you must punish me." She stepped back politely, her eyes curving into a warm smile. Still too shy to look, I lowered my head. "I never said I would punish you. I just wanted to see you and talk." I pulled her down and excitedly served her food. She chuckled. If I were a man, returning from war to such treatment from the princess, risking my life on the battlefield, would be entirely worth it. My hand holding the chopsticks paused. Carrying an unspoken hope, I asked her, "If you are not a man, then what?" The icy branches cracked in the cold. She stayed silent for so long that I finally looked up to study her face. For the first time, she averted her eyes. Her hand clenched tightly on the table. "Lord Wei, even the crown prince yields to you. I certainly cannot harm you. What do you fear from me?" She let out two soft coughs, looking completely caught off guard. Her ears turned completely red. I had no idea what she was thinking, but the usually calm female marquis was utterly flustered. She kept knocking over her wine and choking on her food. She never answered me. My heart sank. Escorting her out of the palace, I walked half a step behind, staring at her tall figure. I had no words. I refused to pretend it was just a joke. I hated pretending. I was raised to love and hate clearly, with a clear conscience. Reaching the north gate, my disappointment showed. "The day you marched out last year, I waited here for 4 hours. I did not care if my hands froze. I only feared never seeing you again. My feelings are clear and will never change. Do not worry about me. I ask for nothing but your safety." To save my pride, I grit my teeth. I might get upset, but I am not helpless. I can read more books, or spend more time in the quiet countryside. Father finally gave me a token to leave the palace. This year, I will farm from the very first seed. I handed her the umbrella, using firm words to steady my heart. Suddenly, she reached out and gripped my hand on the handle. She was so strong, drawing me right against her with a gentle pull. Unable to break free, I whispered, "Lord Wei, is there anything else to say? Haven't you already changed your tone?" She asked suddenly. I stared in confusion. Leaning close, her smile widened. "Princess, won't you call me Sister Xiao?" Let me hear it just once. Now it was my turn to blush in embarrassment. I spun around and bolted. The little maids carrying umbrellas tried to chase me but failed. Hiding behind a palace pillar, I gasped for air, calming myself to practice saying Sister Xiao. She must have heard. Otherwise, she wouldn't have asked if I would wait for her again tomorrow. I will not wait for you, I muttered, I won't wait for you. Yet I sprinted back to my room, begging Mother to help me choose a gorgeous dress. Dressing up for someone I liked made me blush. I could only stand there, speechless. My feelings were a secret, like dew hidden under March flowers. But I believed one day, I would speak them proudly. Fearing the past might repeat, my heart raced as I walked to the north gate. I felt incredibly nervous. I told my maid that military duties came first, so if she had to march out overnight, I understood. But Qi Jing clearly saw right through my anxious rambling. She smiled helplessly. You cannot see from the carriage, princess, but someone in a bright red robe is already waiting. It must be the marquis. Hearing this, I immediately lifted my skirt and jumped down. Bypassing the crowd, I ran toward that bright red figure. From afar, Wei Lingxiao saw me and ran to meet me. The gloomy skies suddenly cleared, letting a warm ray of light slip through. She caught me, breathless, in her arms. Your hands are freezing. Why not stay warm inside? Slipped my hands under her cloak, I hugged her waist. The carriage is too slow. I was afraid I would mistake someone else, so I ran to check if it was Sister Xiao. I will always tell you earlier next time. Arm in arm, we walked happily to the lecture hall. Sitting in front of her, I felt completely at ease. Whenever the tutor praised me, I looked back at her, basically begging for approval. She happily played along, nodding and clapping for me. Eventually, I blushed. Usually, my brothers would mock every word of my essays. But today, seeing how close Wei Lingxiao and I were, they kept their mouths shut. Exploiting her presence, I walked up to my sharp-tongued fourth brother. Fourth brother, you usually love finding fault. Why so silent today? Your silence actually makes me quite anxious. I saw Wei Lingxiao resting her chin on her hand, watching me with amusement. My brother wished he could bury his head in his book. I only criticized you before to help you improve. Today, I find no flaws. Your writing has surpassed mine. This is a good thing, you should be happy. I smiled back with mock politeness. Are you happy too, fourth brother? You seem far less cheerful than you were last year when you pushed me into the icy lake. He glanced nervously at Wei Lingxiao behind me. Whatever he saw made him turn pale with fright. Suddenly, my older brother spoke up. Speaking of icy lakes, the crown princess asked me to inquire about your brother's health. He has been running a high fever, reportedly from falling into an icy lake in Mobe. Is that true? Dumbfounded, I turned to Wei Lingxiao. She was still calmly resting her head on her hand. He is probably too pampered. Marching with the troops made his legs weak, so he slipped into the ice. I am deeply concerned. She spoke with a subtle, mischievous glint in her eyes. I couldn't help but chuckle. Her words denied everything, but her look clearly said. Yes, it was personal revenge. Who told them to push my princess into the freezing lake first? My third brother stood up. Even so, as commander, shouldn't you protect your subordinates from needless harm? Then why don't you join my next campaign to supervise me, she countered. So the third prince can monitor how I treat my soldiers. My third brother sat back down, completely silenced. The crown prince's face turned even darker at her words. He finally asserted his royal authority. Jingan, come to the Eastern Palace. I have matters to discuss with you. I meekly agreed, but Wei Lingxiao pulled me close to whisper. The walls there are thin. Do you need me? I covered her mouth as she leaned over me, smiling. She loved teasing me. Following her advice, I kept Lingyun by my side, outside the gate. I knew Lingyun was her loyal guard. Since the day she left for war, she had protected me. But I overestimated the prince, thinking he would forbid my studies, or leaving the palace. Instead, he had the princess act as a doting sister, flipping through portraits to choose a husband. I recalled mother's words. For a woman, they think marrying well and having babies is true happiness. That's why they tempt me with a perfect husband, to force me back into my place. But I want to study, train, and fight for power. I want to be a ruler, a general, to leave my mark on history. Crown Prince, I am not beneath this, nor am I indifferent. I look up at the grand palace rafters. I have my own path. You are too clever, thinking of things ordinary people never would, he tells me. I understand. Before I married, my mind drifted too. But once you have a family, you stop overthinking. Especially after you have children. But I never expected him to actually lay a hand on me. Behind the cold, dark palace lies a desolate pavilion housing an enemy hostage. The prince's men dragged me inside, bound tight. They threw me in, completely tied up, and held a blade to the hostage's throat, ordering him to defile me. Gagged and terrified, I couldn't scream. The hostage begged for mercy, but to save himself, he reached out to tear at my dress. At his touch, my stomach violently churned. I kicked wildly but couldn't break free. Staring upward, I could only see a tiny crack of light through the skylight. Clouds rolled across a dark sky as thunder roared. Brother, how could you do this to your own sister? Just as I fell into utter despair, a deafening crash shattered the silence outside. The door was kicked open, flooding the darkness with sudden light. Before I could process it, the prince's henchmen were dead, throats slit. The stench of blood made me gag as my savior turned to kill the hostage. I threw myself forward, crashing into a silver-armored embrace. She untied me with incredibly gentle hands. Wiping my tears, my lips bleeding from the gag, I saw the raw heartbreak in Wei Lingxiao's eyes. I broke down, sobbing uncontrollably. I deserve death, she whispered, tears streaming from her one remaining eye. Her pain eclipsed my own terror. I shook my head fiercely. You are not the one who should die. Besides, you cannot kill this hostage. If you do, they will turn this against us before father, and we will have no way to prove our innocence. Wei Lingxiao raised her hand, the same hand that wields heavy steel. Yet as she wiped my tears, her touch was as soft as cotton on my cheek. I smiled through my tears. Her battle-frenzied eyes finally softened, and she lifted me in her arms. We returned to my mother's palace. She wanted to accuse the prince alone, but I stopped her, insisting we go together once I changed. Since we were all women, my mother did not ask her to leave as I undressed. Feeling her intense gaze, my face flushed red. You are covered in bruises. It must hurt so much, she whispered. What about you, sister? I asked. Do your battle scars not hurt you too? I kept my back to her, but my mother was facing me. She caught my expression, her eyes darting between me and Wei Lingxiao with absolute delight. As if she had just uncovered some massive secret. Wei Lingxiao didn't answer, steering the topic back to the prince. With the new year approaching, those unfit for their titles must face their downfall. We cannot let them drag their filth into the next year. In the vanity mirror, I saw her murderous expression, but for the first time, I felt no fear. Sister, they want to watch us fall from on high. They want us utterly ruined. So we will survive, and return every single blow. Deeply moved, she stepped forward and took my hand. My mother gasped, covering her mouth as she stared at the two of us with wide eyes. She was totally shipping us. I ship it, a badass female general and a sweet little princess? They are literally the perfect match. My face flushed bright red, burning with embarrassment. I didn't dare look back at her. Naturally, she had no idea what my mother meant by shipping us. Consort Han, what did you hit? Are you hurt? Oh, I just stubbed my heart. She quickly helped me finish dressing, then practically forced my hand into Wei Lingxiao's palm. Like a mother marrying off her daughter, she urged. Please, make sure you never let her suffer. Seeing my mother's teasing grin, I quickly dragged her out of the room. She agreed cheerfully, promising out loud that she would return me completely unharmed. Amid all this playful chaos, I found my resolve. When we stood before father, I bowed gracefully, meeting the prince's venomous gaze without a hint of fear. Your Highness, even if that hostage had defiled me today, what of it? I would still study at the academy and pray for our nation at the temple. My soul remains pure, and my head remains high. The world before me is vast, and I will never punish myself for your sins. Your despicable scheme has failed to ruin me. It has only made me realize my own strength. Father clearly favored the prince, accepting his lies. He claimed I had simply wandered into restricted grounds by mistake and was speaking nonsense out of fear. But I already held great influence among the common folk. Wary of my reputation, father ordered the guards to sever the hostage's tendons as a token punishment. I felt sick. The monster who truly deserved ruin stood there completely untouched. Your Majesty, the prince lies. The princess was rescued by me as I passed by. I know exactly what happened in that pavilion. I noticed the prince glaring at Wei Lingxiao behind me, his expression twisting into pure malice. Before she spoke, the prince must have felt entirely safe. He is the heir, the future emperor. No one, not even a top general, would destroy their future over a mere princess. Her defiance enraged him instantly. An ignorant woman dares slander me. The prince roared. Behind me, I heard the sharp crack of her knuckles clenching into fists. She was absolutely furious. 2 years ago, when I broke my ribs fighting bandits, why did you not call me an ignorant woman? Last year, when I sacrificed my eye to push the enemy back, why not then? She detached her imperial gold medallion, laid it on the floor, and bowed deeply. Since the prince deems me a mere ignorant woman, I am unfit for this rank. I shall resign and return home. I would be better off retiring to my village. Kneeling beside me, etiquette dictated I could not rise without permission. But I heard her forehead strike the stone floor with a heavy thud. I couldn't help but turn to help her, but I instantly froze. Her eye patch had shifted, revealing her left eye. Dark red, damaged veins spread like roots across her skin. It was devastating. My heart ached, and tears welled in my eyes. But she gave me a calm, reassuring look to put me at ease. Father stepped forward before I could, always valuing this peerless warrior. She was like a god of war descended to earth. You are not even 20, father coaxed, trying to help her up. But she refused to budge, forcing him to reconsider. Realizing her determination, father ordered the prince to apologize. But a simple apology wouldn't satisfy us. I let my tears flow, adding fuel to the fire. Father, if what the prince says is true and I am just an ignorant woman who deserves to be mocked by the world, then I have no reason to live. I leaped up, lunging toward a stone pillar. Terrified, father rushed to stop me. This was not the private study, it was the imperial court. The people involved were not just a beloved princess, but a powerful first-rank general who held the military in her hands. The entire court was waiting for a resolution. Seeing our unyielding resolve, father understood the gravity of the situation. He began to weigh his options, his dismissive tone turning serious. Jingan, Himura, must you pursue this to the end? Challenging the crown prince is a dangerous game. But even facing imperial wrath, I knew she understood my defiance. I am a princess. The first princess in history to govern for the people, and she is the first female general to command millions of troops. We stand at the peak. If we cannot protect ourselves, who can? How can we show the world that women in power can bring peace and prosperity? I nodded firmly. I only want justice, father. Seeing my unwavering resolve, he coughed violently, his posture faltering. He swayed, looking fragile. Last year, he was full of life. Now, looking closely, his hair had turned gray. Yet, in the end, he still denied me true justice. He simply decreed the prince must confine himself to his palace for 3 months. While I refused to let his schemes ruin my life, I know what he wanted. He wanted me utterly destroyed, with no escape. But he only got a slap on the wrist. What is even more ridiculous is that everyone thought grounding the crown prince for 3 months over a mere princess was incredibly generous. So, that new year, I was not happy at all. As fireworks lit up the sky, I huddled against my mother's shoulder, sighing softly. She gently patted my back and said in a calm, quiet voice, "The weather is getting cold. It is time for this royal family to go bankrupt." I did not ask her what she meant. She simply stroked my hair with gentle hands and whispered, "Your father has lost his mind. That throne needs to go to someone with clear eyes and a clean heart." I never realized that her favorite story, the New Huru story, had a terrifying ending. In that book, the emperor's most beloved consort poisons him with her own hands. A shiver ran down my spine. I gripped my mother's hand tightly. Realizing I was squeezing too hard, she patted my hand gently telling me to relax. Without the greatness of past emperors, he still insists on waging wars for land, leaving the country in ruins. The empire is rotting from the inside, yet he does not care about the common people at all. I froze, staring at her calm, resolute eyes before slowly releasing her hand. Later that night, after she went to sleep, I stared out at the night sky, my mind in absolute chaos. But in that quietest moment, the clear sound of approaching hoofbeats broke the silence. Dressed in pure white against the snow, Wei Lingxiao pulled up beside a pine tree. I ran over to her, and she smiled. "Princess, I wish you a happy new year and may all your wishes come true." She pulled a paper parcel from her coat and opened it eagerly, only to find a bag of completely crushed date pastries. Her handsome face fell. "I rode too fast," she sighed. "What a waste of what I spent 3 days learning to make." "You made this yourself?" I asked, reaching out and grabbing a handful before she could hide the parcel. I quickly stuffed the crumbs into my mouth. "It is not bad at all, sister. Aside from being a bit too sweet, it is actually delicious." She grinned, saying she put too much sugar in because she was thinking of me, making me just as sweet. I playfully pushed her away and stamped my feet, asking who taught her such smooth lines. "Self-taught," she laughed. Our playful banter finally chased away the dark clouds in my mind. She carried me up onto the roof and wrapped her warm red cloak around my shoulders. I already knew the answer deep down, but I still had to ask her. "Sister, does everyone who climbs onto that throne have to carve out a path of blood?" Wei Lingxiao fell silent, thinking for a long time. She probably wanted to give me a gentler, less cruel answer. Seeing her brow furrow in worry, I spoke first. "Don't worry, sister. I know exactly what kind of path I am walking. It is just that family and relatives should not have to fight to the death like this." She sighed. "You treat them as siblings, but they see you as a toy. If I had not won those battles, I would never be the Marquis of Zheng. I would just be some noble's housewife, despite being the Marquis' only daughter. That is our reality. A useless son can easily inherit a title, but as a woman, I had to bleed on the battlefield to earn my place and make a name for myself as the jade-faced Yama." She had survived the brutal military camps since childhood, fighting to prove that even an only daughter could carry the weight of her family name. I gently stroked her back, my hand stopping on the deep scar across her neck. "Sister, let us do this for you, for me, and for thousands like us. Since my father and brothers show me no mercy, then I no longer have any reason to stay my hand." After the new year, my father's health rapidly declined. He trusted my mother completely, convinced that because she had no son of her own, she was the only consort who would never poison him. But people must pay for their blind arrogance, especially when they lose control. My days fell into a rhythm, studying under the grand tutor in the morning, inspecting the farming fields in the afternoon, and spending my evenings hiding out at Wei Lingxiao's manor. She would teach me about politics, military strategy, and the land. Knowing the dry north and flood-prone south, I spent my time studying water conservation. Just as the Crown Prince was released, I was on my way to present a canal project to my father. He blocked my path right outside the imperial bedchamber, no longer bothering to hide his venom. My dear sister, you certainly have grand ambitions coveting the throne itself. Brother, you must have lost your mind in isolation, I replied calmly. Father is gravely ill and needs absolute peace. Barging in now would break his heart. Guards, take my brother back to his palace. You will never set foot in my East Palace, he shrieked as my guards dragged him away. Seeing his handsome face twisted in absolute rage, I finally understood what my mother meant by losing one's mind. Walking into the bedchamber, she asked about the noise outside. I laughed it off, saying someone had a total breakdown, so I sent him home. She smiled softly and handed over my canal proposal. Let them break down, she murmured. There will be plenty of days to break them completely. Through the beaded curtain, I saw my father, too weak to even sit up, nodding slowly, directing my mother to stamp it with the imperial seal. As she lifted the heavy jade seal, my heart pounded. Today, it stamps a petition. Tomorrow, it will stamp my imperial decrees. With the empress kept in check, the entire palace was shifting. In the end, we gave the desperate crown prince the push he needed to attempt a coup. He secretly wrote to his mother's powerful family, hoping to seize the throne. My father's wars had already exhausted the empire. The only good decision he ever made was giving a brilliant general like Wei Lingxiao her chance to rise. On the day the crown prince launched his rebellion, I sat by my father's bed, gently wiping his face. You always called us ignorant women, I whispered. But who would have thought that the fool forcing this throne into my hands is your beloved crown prince? Tell me, father, is your rage because he is forcing you to abdicate, or because I am the one taking your crown? I stood up and looked out the window. My mother had already captured the empress. Behind me, my father's breathing slowly stopped. I wiped the tears from my eyes. Father, with the empire in my hands, you can rest in peace. I walked out, left the arrangements of his passing to my mother, and headed straight to the East Palace alone. A light rain fell, blurring my vision, but I knew the way by heart. Years ago, back when I still believed in sibling love, my brother slapped me in that very palace, warning me to remain a powerless princess. He even tried to marry me off to his wife's useless playboy brother. Believing such trash was more than enough for me. He was terrified that I would ever find a way to rise above him, which is why he wanted me bound to a weakling. I had no intention of letting him live. The palace was crawling with our spies. I had purposely let the emperor's treasonous letters slip through. Only a rebellion would give me the perfect excuse to crush him completely and erase him without a trace. A dead prince cannot contest my claim. Having received my orders, Wei Lingxiao had already surrounded the East Palace while Lingyun subdued the empress family. I ordered my guards to stage a mock siege, chanting my name to lure my brother out. But the gates remained shut. Standing right before them, I heard nothing from within. Losing patience, Wei Lingxiao rolled up a massive cannon. Raising shields around me, she ordered them to fire. With a deafening blast, the heavy gates shattered. The walls fell, and the cage that trapped women crumbled into dust. The crown prince and his entire household were quickly dragged into the courtyard. In an instant, their dignity vanished. I realized that the cruel nobles who once looked down on me were also capable of weeping and begging for their lives. My brother had tried to escape by betraying his own mother, but Wei Lingxiao dragged him out of a secret tunnel. Looking up at me, he finally stopped calling me an ignorant woman. Jinger, I am your brother, he pleaded. Your own brother. But when I fell into the frozen lake, you watched me drown. You were the one who pushed me into that foreign hostages' chambers, wanting to see me ruined forever. I blinked, unable to tell if it was rain or tears on my face. I quietly gave my command. The guards only followed orders, so spare their lives. As for the crown princess and her children, banish them from our borders. As for the crown prince, he died in the chaotic crossfire of his failed rebellion. His body is lost, and he shall not lie in the imperial tombs. A guard nodded and stepped forward, sword in hand. Wei Lingxiao rushed to my side, burying my face in her shoulder. Don't look, Jingan, she whispered, the sky will clear up soon. I fainted in her arms, falling into a deep sleep. A lifetime had passed. When I woke up, the sky was bright and clear. Everything went exactly as we planned. Qi Jin held the imperial robes out to me. Your Majesty, the officials await in the grand hall. Allow me to dress you. The historians would write that I was the first and greatest empress of all time, but the title felt hollow. I never wanted the throne for empty fame. I only wanted women to walk this earth freely, living for themselves. I wanted women to live fully, not just fear being cast out by in-laws. I wanted them to rightfully inherit thrones and titles just like men, based on merit. So, after my coronation, I built academies and created official posts so women could read, write, and serve as court officials. I abolished the old palace restrictions. The concubines once trapped by my father in tiny, walled courtyards could finally step outside, explore the beautiful world, and drink with Lingxiao to their heart's content. Since I had no desire to invade foreign lands, we enjoyed a few peaceful, comfortable years. Honestly, I couldn't bear to let him go, so I only asked him to train brave generals who could guard our own territories. After all, our urgent priority is recovery. We must feed the people, care for the elderly, and support the sick. I am willing to be a transitional ruler, letting the next generation build a golden age, while we enjoy the flowers and the moon. I gently pulled Wei Lingxiao into my arms, indulging him. The world is harsh and critical of us. My love, I am so sorry, I whispered. I still don't dare to give you an official title. We have plenty of time, he murmured. I knew he understood. As always, he respected and trusted me. He was my pillar of state, and the one held closest to my heart. Blessed by your love, he whispered, I can only repay you with my life. It was a night of reunion, the Mid-Autumn Festival. While Wei Lingxiao and I embraced under the moon, my mother quietly packed her bags and left the palace alone. On my coronation day, she had told me words I could never understand, but my choice this time made her happy. She had held my shoulders, smiling mysteriously. Jingan, you have won your freedom, she said. This time, let your mother have her freedom, too. When I first arrived, I held you as a baby. I unlocked the painless childbirth achievement on day 1. You were so easy to raise, it was awesome. I'll surely brag about it back home. After all these years with her, I gradually realized I didn't need to understand her words. I only needed to feel her heart. So, cradling her face, I whispered, Mother, just go do whatever you want. I only wish for your happiness, and for your safety and health. In that instant, her eyes welled with tears. Hugging me tightly, she sobbed. My Jingan, you've never traveled past the city walls, yet your heart carries the whole empire and its people. You are clearly the one who suffered so much, yet you always try to shield me from the storm. She broke down completely, her voice cracking until she could only sob, calling out my name over and over. Though I never fully understood her, I had a feeling she had finished her work and was leaving me. But I wanted to let her go, to let her chase her freedom. This palace trapped her for too long. Now, the gates are wide open. She can explore the vast world and learn amazing skills. She could even solve difficult math with ease. I believe nothing can ever hold her back. My mother is, and always will be, the cleverest woman in this world. Finally, under the bright moonlight, I raised a cup of wine to toast in the direction my mother had gone. The path ahead for Empress Jingan is long and difficult, but I will not fear. My heart is bright and clear. As for everything else, let history be the judge.